A wild horse witnesses a cruel act on a rainy night and makes a decision no one could have imagined. What it does next defies all odds and changes the fate of a powerful farmer forever. The rain mercilessly battered the hills of Golden Creek that night. Lightning cut across the sky at irregular intervals, momentarily illuminating the historic landscape of the Californian town. On the edge of a cliff, where the city lights barely reached, a solitary figure waited, her wheelchair firmly positioned on the muddy ground. Sophia Anderson adjusted her soaked coat, her fingers nervously clutching the documents protected in a waterproof folder. At 28, the heiress to the Anderson agricultural empire carried a determination in her gaze that rivaled the strength of the storm. 3 months had passed since her father's departure, and every day since then had been dedicated to unraveling the truth she now held in her hands. Thunder reverberated through the valley, and at the same instant headlights cut through the darkness. A luxury car approached slowly, its wheels skidding slightly in the mud. From the driver's seat emerged Victor Hawthorne, the man who for years had been not only her father's business partner, but also his closest tutor and advisor. "Sophia, my dear," his voice sounded controlled, almost paternal as he approached, protected by an umbrella. "What urgency is this that couldn't wait until tomorrow? And here of all places—" "It's over, Victor," Sophia interrupted, her voice firm despite the rain that now fell harder. "I have all the evidence here. The fake contracts, the forged deeds, the payments to politicians. I know everything." A few meters away, partially, hidden among the trees that bordered the cliff, a majestic black horse observed the scene with an almost human attention. Thunder, as he was known to the locals, was a living legend in the hills of Golden Creek. Some said it was impossible to tame him, others swore he mysteriously appeared to help lost travelers on stormy nights. Victor took a few steps towards Sophia, his once cordial face now assuming a darker expression. "You're just like your father, you know, always wanting to do the right thing, always thinking you're morally superior." "Don't you dare talk about my father." Sophia raised her voice, her hands trembling with anger. "He trusted you, Victor. He treated you like a brother. And all this time you were stealing from our family, destroying everything he built." A lightning bolt illuminated Victor's face, revealing a cold smile. "Your naivety is touching, Sophia. Do you really think you can face me? That you can show up with some folders and destroy everything I've built over years?" Thunder stirred restlessly, his hooves beating softly against the muddy ground. Something in the air had changed, a palpable tension that even the wild animal could sense. The rain continued to fall mercilessly, but now it seemed only a backdrop to the drama unfolding. "There's still time," Sophia tried, her voice taking on a more conciliatory tone. "We can resolve this legally, return the lands, confess your crimes, and maybe we can—" "Crimes?" Victor laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "The only crime here was your father being so foolish. Do you know how many people depend on my businesses? How many politicians, businessmen, entire families? You have no idea of the world you're getting into, child." Sophia felt a shiver run down her spine, not from the rain soaking her clothes, but from the look Victor was now giving her. It was the same look she had always suspected to see behind his mask of kindness, now finally exposed. Cold, calculating, predatory. "You're right about one thing," he continued, taking another step in her direction. "This ends today." Thunder. Neighed, a high-pitched sound that was lost in the noise of the storm. His attentive eyes caught every movement, every nuance of that scene that was about to forever change the fate of all present on that fateful night. Time seemed to freeze. For an instant, Sophia barely had time to register Victor's sudden movement towards her. Her reflexes, developed from years of adapting to the wheelchair, made her try to back away, but the waterlogged ground turned the maneuver into a dangerous move. "What are you doing?" she shouted, feeling panic rise as she realized her wheelchair was starting to slide dangerously close to the edge of the cliff. "Putting an end to this story," Victor responded with terrifying calm, moving closer. That's when she felt the impact. A precise push that made her chair tilt backward. Sophia felt her stomach churn when she realized she was falling. Her fingers, by pure survival instinct, grabbed onto an exposed root on the cliff face. "Help!" Her scream echoed through the valley, but was swallowed by the roar of another thunderclap. Victor watched from above, his silhouette outlined by the lightning that still cut across the sky. There was no longer any trace of his mask of cordiality, only a calculating coldness in his gaze as he watched his likely victim fighting for her life. It was at that moment that something extraordinary happened. Thunder, the wild horse that had been observing everything, moved with impressive speed. His neigh cut through the air like a war cry, drawing Victor's attention, who for the first time showed true fear. Without hesitation, the majestic, black animal began an impossible descent down the cliff. His hooves, accustomed to the most difficult terrains of the Golden Creek Hills, found support where there seemed to be none. The rain continued to fall, but Thunder moved as if each drop were a guide in his mission. Sophia felt her fingers slip from the root. The fall seemed inevitable, and for a moment she saw her entire life flash before her eyes. She remembered her father, his last words asking her to always protect the family legacy. She thought of Hannah, her faithful secretary, the only person who knew where the copies of the documents incriminating Victor were. The impact of the fall was cushioned by a series of branches and bushes, but it was still enough to leave her dazed. Her body rolled a few meters before stopping on a small ledge of the terrain. Consciousness was beginning to slip away when she felt a presence nearby. Thunder had reached her, his intelligent eyes assessing the situation. With a gentleness that seemed impossible for an animal of that size, he lowered himself beside Sophia, his muzzle gently touching her face as if checking her vital signs. At the top of the cliff, Victor observed the scene with a mixture of disbelief and anger. But his attention soon turned to more practical matters. He needed to act quickly, build his version of the facts before someone started asking inconvenient questions. Meanwhile, guided by an instinct that defied comprehension, Thunder managed to position his body in a way that he could lift Sophia. With extraordinary care, he adjusted her on his back, ensuring she wouldn't fall during the journey ahead. The rain was beginning to subside when the horse began its journey through the night. His steps were precise and determined, as if he knew exactly where he needed to go. And indeed he did. He was taking Sophia to the only person who could help her at that moment, old Jack, a cowboy who had always claimed there was something special about that wild horse. Sophia's fate was now literally in Thunder's hooves, and as the animal galloped through the night, carrying its precious burden, the first stars began to appear in the sky, as if nature itself wanted to illuminate their path of hope. Jack's small ranch was hidden among the hills, far from the curious eyes of the town. It was a simple but welcoming place where time seemed to run at a different pace. The old cowboy was sitting on his porch, watching the storm dissipate, when he heard the unmistakable sound of hooves approaching. "It can't be," he muttered to himself, rising from his rocking chair. His eyes, accustomed to the darkness after decades of dealing with animals, soon recognized Thunder's majestic silhouette emerging from the night. But there was something different on his back, a motionless figure that made the old cowboy's heart tighten. "Good Lord!" exclaimed Jack, running as fast as his legs would allow. As he approached, he immediately recognized Sophia Anderson, the young woman who used to visit the region with her father. She was soaked, unconscious but breathing. With an agility that defied his age, Jack carried Sophia inside the house, placing her on his own bed. Thunder remained outside, his attentive eyes fixed on the bedroom window like a silent guardian. "Mrs. Rose," Jack called his wife, who soon appeared carrying clean towels and hot water. The couple worked in silence, changing Sophia's wet clothes and treating her superficial wounds. Hours passed until Sophia began to wake up. Her eyes opened slowly, disoriented, until they focused on the wrinkled and gentle face of Mrs. Rose, who was holding her hand. Where am I?" Her voice came out hoarse, as memories of the previous night began to return like flashes of a nightmare. "You're safe, my child," responded Mrs. Rose, offering a glass of water. "Thunder brought you to us." Upon hearing the horse's name, Sophia tried to sit up, but a sharp pain made her retreat. Thunder, he saved me, Victor, he... You don't need to talk now, interrupted Jack, who had just entered the room. Rest first. But there's something you need to know. The old cowboy turned on a small radio on the bedside table. The announcer's voice filled the room with news that made Sophia's blood run cold. The Golden Creek community is in shock with the tragic event of last night. Sophia Anderson, heiress to the Anderson agricultural empire, is believed to have taken her own life by jumping off a cliff. Victor Hawthorne, tutor and business partner of the family, was the one who alerted the authorities. "No," Sophia tried to shout, but her voice came out as an anguished whisper. "He's lying, he tried to..." "Calm down. Young lady," Jack turned off the radio and approached. "We believe you. I always knew there was something wrong with that man. Thunder himself never trusted him, and that horse has a special gift for judging people's character." Outside, as if understanding they were talking about him, Thunder neighed softly. Sophia looked out the window, meeting the eyes of the animal that had risked its own life to save her. "But what am I going to do now?" she asked, more to herself than to the others. "He stole the evidence I had against him, and now everyone thinks I..." "Not everyone," interrupted Mrs. Rose, exchanging a significant look with her husband. "Hannah, your secretary, was here yesterday morning. She said she had something important for us to keep in case anything happened to you." Sophia's heart raced. Hannah, her loyal secretary, had foreseen that something like this could happen. Always so cautious, so attentive to details. "Where is she now?" asked Sophia, trying to sit up again, this time more slowly. The silence that followed was heavy. Mrs. Rose lowered her eyes, and Jack cleared his throat before answering. "Nobody knows. She disappeared after leaving a sealed envelope with us. She said it was to be delivered only to you in case something happened." Sophia closed her eyes, processing the information. Hannah had disappeared, but not before ensuring that the evidence was safe. Now more than ever, she needed to regain her strength and think of a plan. "I need my wheelchair," she finally said, her voice regaining its characteristic determination. "It's damaged, my child," replied Mrs. Rose. "But don't worry. Jack kept our granddaughter's old chair. I'll ask him to bring it." As the couple left the room, Sophia turned her gaze to the window. Thunder was still there, imposing as if standing guard. Her eyes met the animal's once more, and at that moment, a certainty formed in her heart. As long as she had allies, like that extraordinary horse and that kind-hearted couple, there was still hope. Sheriff Garrett parked his patrol car near the cliff, carefully observing the movement of the team cordoning off the area. A veteran of the California State Police, something about this story didn't fit with his 20 years of experience. "Sheriff," called one of the local guards, approaching with a report in hand. "We found something strange during the patrol." "Oh, you need to see this." Garrett followed the guard along a steep trail that skirted the cliff. The rain from the previous night had left the ground waterlogged, but it was still possible to clearly distinguish a peculiar set of marks on the ground. "Horse tracks," muttered the sheriff, crouching down to examine them more closely. "And they're not shallow. The animal went down here carrying weight." "Exactly," agreed the guard. "And there's more. They're recent marks from last night. No domesticated horse could descend this slope, especially during a storm." Garrett took a small notebook from his pocket and began taking notes. His experienced mind was already starting to piece together a puzzle that didn't fit the official version of events. "I want all the security camera footage from the area," he ordered. "And bring me the full forensics report. There's something very strange about this story." Meanwhile, in the center of Golden Creek, Victor Hawthorne was giving a press conference in the gardens of the Anderson mansion. Wearing an impeccable suit and displaying a studied sadness, he spoke to the journalists. Sophia was facing deep depression since the loss of her father. His choked voice sounded convincing. "I tried to help her to be there, but she shut herself off from everyone. As her tutor and family friend, I will assume the responsibility of preserving the Anderson legacy." The cameras recorded every word, every rehearsed gesture. But behind the scenes, away from the spotlight, a figure watched everything with suspicion. Rita Mendez, the mansion's former housekeeper, couldn't accept the version presented by Victor. Miss Sophia would never do this, she whispered to herself, remembering the long conversations she had with the young woman. She was determined to uncover the truth about her father's business. At Jack's ranch, Sophia watched the interview on the small television in the room. Her hands tightly gripped the arms of the borrowed wheelchair as she watched Victor masterfully manipulate the truth. Cynical, she muttered, turning off the TV. But you won't be able to hide the truth forever. Mrs. Rose entered the room carrying a tray with tea and homemade cookies. You need to eat, my child. Regain your strength. Thank you, Mrs. Rose, Sophia smiled, taking a cup. You and Jack are risking a lot by helping me. If Victor finds out... Don't think about that, the lady interrupted firmly. That man has already caused too much harm to many people around here. It's time someone stood up to him. Outside, thunder grazed peacefully in the small orchard of the ranch. It was the first time the wild horse had allowed itself to stay in one place for so long, as if understanding the importance of its presence there. Jack, who had just returned from a discreet trip to town, entered the room hurriedly. There's news, he announced, his face showing concern. Sheriff Garrett is investigating the case personally. They say he found something strange at the site. Garrett? Sophia straightened in her chair. My father always said he was the only cop in the region who couldn't be bought. Exactly, confirmed Jack. And there's more. Hannah left something for you besides the envelope. The old cowboy took a small flash drive from his pocket, handing it to Sophia. She said that inside are copies of all the documents, plus some things you hadn't seen yet. But we need to be careful. Victor has eyes and ears everywhere. Sophia held the flash drive as if it were a precious treasure. Inside could be the evidence. She needed to unmask Victor, but how to use it without putting at risk the people who were helping her? A neigh from Thunder caught everyone's attention. The horse had positioned itself near the window, its ears alert, as if sensing some suspicious movement. Someone's approaching, Jack murmured, quickly turning off the room light. The sound of an unfamiliar car on the dirt road made everyone's heart race. The night was just beginning, and with it new challenges and dangers were approaching. The unfamiliar car passed slowly along the dirt road, its headlights briefly illuminating the facade of Jack's ranch. Everyone remained in absolute silence until the sound of the engine disappeared into the night. It was one of Victor's henchmen, Jack confirmed, after checking through the window. They're patrolling the area. We need to be more careful. Sophia clutched the flash drive in her hands, her mind working quickly. I need to see what's in here, she said, determined. Do you have any computer? Mrs. Rose smiled, disappearing for a moment and returning with an old laptop. Our granddaughter left it here the last time she visited. It's not the most modern, but it should do. With hands trembling slightly from anxiety, Sophia inserted the flash drive. The computer screen illuminated her concentrated face as a series of folders appeared before her eyes. My God, she whispered as she opened the files. Hannah wasn't kidding. There's much more here than I imagined. The documents revealed a scheme much larger than Sophia had initially discovered. It wasn't just the Anderson lands that were at stake. Victor had created a complex network of shell companies, using them for money laundering and illegal appropriation of land from small property owners in the region. Look at this, called Sophia, showing a specific document. This is the deed to Mr. Johnson's farm, the one who lost everything 2 years ago. Victor forged his signature. Jack approached, adjusting his glasses to see better. Mr. Johnson never recovered after losing the farm. He with her. And it wasn't just him, Sophia continued, opening more files. There are dozens of similar cases here. Hannah kept a detailed record of everything for the past 5 years. A video file caught her attention. Upon opening it, the slightly grainy image showed a meeting between Victor and some businessman from the region. The date indicated 3 days before the incident with her father. This meeting... Sophia turned up the volume, her heart racing as she recognized the voices. My father was suspecting something. He confronted Victor that day. In the video, the discussion was becoming increasingly heated. Sophia's father, normally a calm man, was visibly agitated, pointing his finger at Victor and threatening to expose something. Hannah thought of everything, Sophia murmured, finding a folder with backups of incriminating emails and conversations. She knew this could happen. That's why she prepared all this documentation. Mrs. Rose, who had been observing everything in silence, gently placed her hand on Sophia's shoulder. "Your secretary's a very brave woman. I hope she's safe, wherever she is." A soft neigh from Thunder caught everyone's attention. The horse seemed restless, as if sensing something in the air. Jack went to the window again, checking the surroundings with his experienced eyes. "We have to think carefully about the next step," said the old cowboy. "Victor has a lot of important people on his side. It won't be easy to expose all of this without putting more lives at risk." Sophia nodded, saving a copy of everything in a secure folder. "We need to find Hannah first. She must have more information, and she also needs protection." While organizing the files, Sophia found a different document. It was a letter addressed to her, dated the day before her confrontation with Victor. "Dear Sophia," she began to read. Aloud, "If you're reading this, it means my suspicions were correct. Victor is more dangerous than we thought, but there's something you need to know about the night your father passed away. It wasn't an accident as everyone thinks. I saw something. That night, something that changed everything." The letter continued, but Sophia had to pause, her hands trembling so much she could barely hold the paper. The truth that Hannah was guarding was even darker than she had imagined. Outside, the night was silent, except for the occasional sound of Thunder's hooves against the ground. The horse remained vigilant, as if understanding the gravity of the discoveries being made inside that small ranch. "We need to rest," suggested Mrs. Rose, noticing the fatigue on Sophia's face. "Tomorrow we'll think better about what to do with all this information." Sophia reluctantly agreed, saving everything and removing the flash drive. Her mind, however, was far from sleep. The revelations of that night had opened old wounds and created new questions. More than ever, she was determined to bring justice, not just for her family, but for all those Victor had harmed over the years. The sun had barely risen when Sheriff Garrett arrived at his office in the police station. On his desk, a pile of documents and reports awaited his analysis. He had spent the night connecting dots, investigating details that others might consider insignificant. "Fresh coffee, Sheriff," announced Sandra, his longtime assistant, placing a steaming cup on the desk. "You have a visitor. Rita Mendez is waiting outside." Garrett raised his eyebrows, surprised. The housekeeper of the Anderson mansion rarely left home, let alone visited the police station. "Send her in," he requested. Quickly organizing some papers, Rita entered the room with hesitant steps, her face showing the anxiety of someone carrying a weight on their shoulders. "Sheriff, forgive me for coming so early, but there's something I need to tell you." "Sit." "Down, Mrs. Mendez," Garrett offered, his gentle tone encouraging her to continue. "It's about Miss Sophia," Rita began, twisting a handkerchief between her fingers. "She wasn't the type of person, Hooter, you understand. In the last few weeks she was different, yes, but not depressed. She was determined, even angry." Garrett took out his notebook. "Please, continue." "On the night when... well, that night, she received a call. She was in the office and I was passing by with clean clothes. I overheard unintentionally. She was saying something about evidence, about exposing someone." The sheriff made some quick notes. "Do you know who she was talking to?" "No," Rita shook her head. "But soon after, Victor showed up at the mansion. He was agitated, asking for her. When he found out she had left, he became furious. I've never seen him like that before." "And her secretary, Hannah?" questioned Garrett. "Do you know anything about her disappearance?" Rita hesitated for a moment. Hannah was very dedicated to Sophia. In the last few days, she was acting strangely, making copies of documents, storing things. On the morning before she disappeared, she handed me an envelope and said, "If anything happens to me or Sophia, look for old Jack." The sheriff leaned forward, interested. "And this envelope?" "I don't have it anymore." Rita lowered her eyes. "I followed Hannah's instructions. I took it to Jack the next day." Garrett noted down the cowboy's name, a piece that could be crucial in the puzzle he was putting together. "Mrs. Mendez, would you mind officially registering all of this?" "I'm afraid," admitted the housekeeper. Victor has a lot of power in the region. People who cross him tend to have problems. I understand your concern, Garrett assured, but I promise your safety will be guaranteed. After Rita left, the sheriff began to organize the information he had so far. The strange horse, tracks on the cliff, the housekeeper's testimony, Hannah's suspicious disappearance, and now this mysterious envelope delivered to Jack. Sandra, he called his assistant, prepare the car. We're going to pay old Jack a visit. Meanwhile, at the Anderson mansion, Victor received a call that made him frown in concern. What do you mean, horse tracks? His voice was low but loaded with tension. I don't want to hear about speculations. Make sure the sheriff doesn't keep poking around where he shouldn't. On the other end of the line, his informant in the police assured that he would do his best to hinder the investigations, but Victor wasn't at ease. He knew Garrett's reputation, one of the few who couldn't be corrupted. At Jack's ranch, Thunder suddenly became agitated, his alert ears catching the distant sound of a car approaching. The animal neighed, drawing the attention of his protégés. Jack ran to the window, his experienced eyes recognizing the official vehicle approaching on the dirt road. It's Sheriff Garrett, he announced, turning to Sophia. What do we do? Sophia, who had just finished rereading Hannah's letter for the third time, made a quick decision. Let him in. Maybe it's time to have one more ally in this fight. The sound of the car was getting closer and closer, while everyone on the ranch prepared for an encounter that could completely change the course of events. Sheriff Garrett got out of the car, his experienced eyes immediately noticing the majestic black horse that was watching him attentively from the pasture. Thunder maintained his proud posture, as if assessing the intentions of the newcomer. Interesting, Garrett muttered, recognizing the animal from local stories. It wasn't a coincidence that the legendary wild horse was right here, at the ranch. That had become the center of his suspicions. Jack came out to greet him, his expression carefully neutral. How can I help you, Sheriff? Mr. Jack, Garrett greeted, noticing the old cowboy's attentive eyes. I'm investigating the case of Miss Sophia Anderson. I have some questions about an envelope that Mrs. Mendez mentioned. Before Jack could answer, a familiar voice sounded from the porch. You can come in, Sheriff. I think we have a lot to talk about. Garrett froze for an instant, his eyes widening as he recognized Sophia Anderson, very much alive, sitting in a wheelchair. A discreet smile formed on his lips. His suspicions were correct. Inside the house, Mrs. Rose served coffee for everyone, while Sophia shared her story. The sheriff listened attentively, making occasional notes, his face showing increasing indignation. With each revelation, "So Thunder really did descend the cliff to save you," he commented, looking out the window where the horse maintained his vigil. "That explains the tracks we found." "He's more than just a simple horse," Jack affirmed with conviction. "I always knew there was something special about him." Sophia then showed the sheriff the files from the flash drive, explaining each document, each piece of evidence that Hannah had meticulously gathered over the years. "This is much bigger than we imagined," Garrett commented, scanning through the documents. "Victor has built a true empire of corruption, but we need to act with caution. He has influential people in his pocket." "And Hannah?" asked Sophia, the concern evident in her voice. "Any clue about her whereabouts?" The sheriff closed his notebook. "Not yet, but now that I know she's alive, I can better direct the search. I fear Victor may be keeping her somewhere to ensure her silence." A sharp neigh from Thunder interrupted the conversation. The horse was agitated, his ears turned towards the road. "Someone's coming," Jack warned, running to check. "It's 2 cars. Must be Victor's men," Garrett concluded, quickly standing up. "We need to act fast." "There's a passage through the back," Mrs. Rose informed, already in motion. "It leads to an old barn, crossing through the orchard." Sophia quickly gathered the laptop and flash drive. "I can't risk them finding the evidence." "I'll create a distraction," offered Garrett. "Officially, I'm just investigating reports of cattle theft in the region. This should give you enough time to hide." Thunder, as if understanding the situation, approached the back window. His intelligent eyes met Sophia's, communicating a silent message of protection. "He knows what to do," Jack smiled, admiring the connection between the animal and the young woman. Thunder can take her to the barn through a path Victor's men don't know. With Jack's help, Sophia was transferred to Thunder's back, who gently lowered himself to facilitate the process. The horse, which had never allowed anyone to ride him, seemed perfectly comfortable with her. "Maintain contact through Rita," instructed Garrett, handing Sophia a small radio communicator. "She's our informant inside the mansion now." The cars were already close when Thunder silently departed through the back of the property, carrying Sophia and the precious evidence. The animal moved with surprising grace, choosing paths that kept them hidden among the orchard trees. Mrs. Rose and Jack quickly organized the house to look as if nothing suspicious was happening there. Sheriff Garrett strategically positioned himself on the porch, his official presence serving as a protective shield. As she moved away, Sophia could hear the sound of cars parking. Her heart was racing, but a new determination was growing in her chest. With each new ally, with each small victory, she was closer to bringing justice. Thunder galloped smoothly, his hooves barely making a sound against the ground, as if understanding the need for discretion. The old barn was already visible in the distance, a temporary refuge that held not only their safety, but also the hopes of unmasking one of the biggest corruption schemes Golden Creek had ever witnessed. The old barn was larger than Sophia had imagined, with an improvised loft that served perfectly as a hideout. Thunder had brought her by such a discreet path that he seemed to know every inch of this land. "You really are extraordinary," she whispered to the horse, which kept guard near the entrance. His attentive eyes alternated between the main road and the path they had come from. Through the small radio communicator, Sophia could hear fragments of the conversation happening at Jack's house. The deep voice of one of Victor's men questioned the sheriff about his presence there. "As I've already explained," Garrett's firm voice sounded through the device, "we're investigating a series of cattle thefts in the region. Mr. Jack, as a knowledgeable person of these lands, is collaborating with our investigations." A tense silence followed, broken only by the distant sound of birds. Sophia took the moment to examine her refuge better. The loft was surprisingly clean and organized, with some folded blankets in a corner. Jack must have prepared this place, she thought, also noticing some water bottles and lanterns. The old cowboy had foreseen that they might need a hideout. Her thoughts were interrupted by a peculiar sound coming from one of the walls. Approaching with her wheelchair, Sophia discovered a loose board. Inside the improvised hiding place, she found something that made her heart race, an old document box with the Anderson Enterprises logo. With trembling hands, she opened the box. Inside, she found old photographs, yellowed documents, and a diary. Her father used to keep detailed records of everything, a habit she had inherited. "My God," she whispered, recognizing the familiar handwriting. The pages of the diary revealed that her father had started to suspect Victor much earlier than she had imagined. March 12, 2023, she read quietly. "Something's wrong with the accounts of the southern farm. Victor insists the numbers are correct, but the signatures on the contracts look different. I need to investigate further." Thunder neighed softly, as if wanting to remind her to stay. Alert to her surroundings, Sophia continued flipping through the diary, each page revealing more pieces of the puzzle. "Hannah was right," she murmured, connecting the information from the diary with the files on the flash drive. Dad was building his own case against Victor. A new entry caught her attention. April 15, 2023. "I found incriminating documents in Victor's office. I can't confront him yet. I need more evidence. Hannah is helping me gather evidence. I need to protect Sophia. She's the only one who can continue this if something happens to me." The radio crackled again, now with Jack's voice. "They're gone, but they shouldn't take long to come back. We need to think of another place for you to stay." Sophia responded quickly. "Jack, come here when you can. I found something you need to see." While waiting, she continued her discovery. Among the documents, she found something even more surprising, a letter addressed to her, still sealed, dated a few days before her father's departure. The sound of approaching footsteps made Sophia quickly put away the letter. Thunder remained calm, indicating it was someone familiar. Soon Jack appeared at the barn entrance. "I see you found your father's hiding place," commented the old cowboy, carefully climbing up to the loft. He started keeping things here when he realized Victor was acting in the shadows. "Why did you never tell me?" asked Sophia, a hint of hurt in her voice. Jack sat down on a nearby hay bale. "Your father made me promise to reveal this only if it was absolutely necessary. He wanted to make sure you would be prepared to face the truth." Thunder approached the loft entrance, his attentive eyes fixed on Sophia. The animal seemed to understand the importance of that moment. "Sheriff Garrett managed to throw Victor's men off track for now," Jack continued. "But they'll be back with reinforcements. We need to think of a plan." Sophia held her father's sealed letter, feeling its significant. "Wait. First, I need to read this. Something tells me that inside is the missing piece to understand everything." The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows through the cracks in the barn. As Sophia prepared to open the letter, Thunder maintained his silent guard, like a sentinel protecting not only their lives, but also the secrets that place held. With trembling hands, Sophia opened the envelope. The paper had her father's characteristic smell, that mixture of pipe tobacco and the woody perfume he always used. Taking a deep breath, she began to read. "My dear daughter, if you're reading this letter, it means my suspicions have been confirmed. Victor is not the man we thought we knew. For years I trusted him like a brother, allowed him to become part of our family, and that was my biggest mistake. I've discovered something terrible, Sophia. The scheme of corruption and land appropriation is just the tip of the iceberg. Victor is involved with powerful people who don't hesitate to use any means to get what they want. They have a plan for our region, something that goes beyond simple greed. 3 days ago, I found documents that prove they intend to build a tailings dam on our lands, a project that would destroy not only our farm, but would affect hundreds of families, contaminate rivers, and devastate one of the last natural sanctuaries of California. All of this hidden under the facade of a regional development project. Hannah has been helping me gather evidence. She discovered connections between Victor and important politicians, inflated contracts, forged environmental reports. But the most worrying thing is that they've already started pressuring small property owners to sell their lands for ridiculous prices, using veiled threats. Daughter, if anything happens to me, look in the false bottom of the drawer in my office. There I left an encrypted hard drive with all the evidence. The password is the date of your first horseback ride, that special day when you showed that no physical limitation could prevent you from achieving your dreams. But be careful. Victor has eyes and ears everywhere. Trust only people who have proven their loyalty over the years. Old Jack is one of them. He knows every inch of this land and holds secrets that can help us. And Sophia, there's something about Thunder you need to know. That extraordinary horse didn't appear on our lands by chance. He belonged to your grandfather, who set him free when he realized no man would be worthy of taming him. Since then, Thunder chooses who to protect. If he's by your side, it's not by coincidence. Be strong, my daughter. You've always been much braver than I am. Fight for the truth, but don't let the desire for justice harden your heart. There are good people who depend on you, who believe in your ability to make a difference. With all my love, your father. Sophia slowly folded the letter, silent tears running down her face. Jack, who had remained silent during the reading, gently placed his hand on her shoulder. Your father was a man of vision, said the old cowboy. He knew this day would come. The dam, Sophia murmured, her mind processing the gravity of the situation. That's why Victor was so desperate to take full control of the lands. It's not just about money, it's about power and destruction. Thunder approached, his muzzle gently touching Sophia's face, as if wanting to dry her tears. The revelation about his connection to her grandfather explained a lot about the animal's protective behavior. We need to go to the mansion, Sophia declared, her voice regaining its firmness. The hard drive with the evidence must still be there, hidden in the office. It's too risky, warned Jack. Victor practically lives there now, and after what happened today, security must be reinforced. That's exactly why we need to act soon, insisted Sophia. He doesn't expect me to try something so direct. Besides, we have an ally inside. As if agreeing, Thunder neighed softly. His intelligent eyes seemed to say he was ready for another, impossible mission. The radio communicator crackled, bringing Sheriff Garrett's voice. "Sophia, I got some information about Hannah. She was last seen at an abandoned farm on the outskirts of the county. I'm on my way there now." "Go with the sheriff," suggested Jack. "I can try to recover the hard drive." Sophia shook her head, determined. "No, Jack. Hannah might be in danger, but she's smart. She must have left more clues, more evidence. You need to go with Garrett. You know the region better than he does. I'll go to the mansion with Thunder." The sun was already low on the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange and red. It was time to act. As Jack left to meet the sheriff, Sophia carefully stored her father's letter and prepared for another ride with her unlikely protector. The Anderson mansion awaited, imposing and laden with secrets, while a bold plan began to take shape in Sophia's mind. Night had fallen over Golden Creek when Sophia and Thunder approached the Anderson mansion. The full moon provided a silvery illumination that made the scene almost dreamlike. From atop a nearby hill, they observed the movements of the security. "3 guards on the perimeter," whispered Sophia, more to herself than to Thunder. "And probably 2 more inside the house." The horse remained perfectly still, his ears attentive to every sound. Years of wildlife had made him a master at going unnoticed when necessary. The radio communicator vibrated softly. It was Rita, the housekeeper. "Miss Sophia, Victor left half an hour ago for an urgent meeting. He took 2 security guards with him. It's our best chance." "Understood, Rita. Keep the others distracted in the kitchen. I'll use the back entrance." The Anderson mansion had been built in the 19th century, and like many old houses, it held its own secrets. Sophia knew each one of them, every passage, every blind spot of the security systems. Thunder moved silently through the property, keeping to the shadows of the old trees in the garden. His hooves, which normally resonated strongly against the ground, now barely made a sound as they touched the damp grass. As they reached the back of the mansion, Sophia spotted Rita at the kitchen door. The housekeeper had gathered the staff for an impromptu late-night coffee, keeping them away from the office. "I need you to stay here," Sophia whispered to Thunder, stroking his neck. "If anything goes wrong, you know what to do." The animal neighed very softly, as if protesting against the idea of leaving her alone. But he remained where he was, his attentive eyes fixed on the mansion's windows. With Rita's help, Sophia discreetly entered the house. Her wheelchair, which could have been an obstacle, moved with surprising agility over the wooden floor. Years of practice had taught her exactly where each board creaked. Her father's office remained virtually untouched. Victor, in his arrogance, hadn't bothered to thoroughly search the place. He probably believed he had already found all the important evidence. He never really understood Dad, thought Sophia, heading to the antique desk. The drawer mentioned in the letter had a special mechanism that her father had installed personally. Pressing a specific point on the carved wood, Sophia heard a soft click. The false bottom revealed itself, and there it was, a small external hard drive, carefully wrapped in black velvet. Her hands trembled slightly as she stored the device in her bag. That's when she heard voices approaching down the hallway. "The boss wants us to check everything again," said a male voice. "He's sure there are more documents hidden somewhere." Sophia felt her heart race. She was cornered in the office, and the only exit was the door through which the voices were approaching. It was then that a familiar sound broke the silence of the night. A powerful neigh followed by the sound of glass breaking. Thunder had created a distraction, knocking over some garden vases. "What was that noise?" asked one of the voices, and the footsteps changed direction, moving away from the office. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Sophia slid out of the room. Rita was waiting for her at the end of the corridor, indicating the safe path. "The other staff are busy in the kitchen," whispered the housekeeper, "but we need to be quick. Victor could return at any moment." Outside, Thunder continued his performance, keeping the security guards busy at the other end of the garden. The animal seemed to be enjoying itself, provoking the men just enough to keep them away from the back area. Sophia reached the kitchen door at the exact moment headlights illuminated the main entrance of the mansion. Victor had returned earlier than expected. "Go," urged Rita. "I'll take care of things here." With a fluid movement, Sophia transferred herself to Thunder's back, who was already strategically positioned near the door. The horse didn't wait for a second command. He departed silently into the night, taking his precious cargo away from the mansion. Only when they were at a safe distance, protected by the darkness of the hills, did Sophia allow herself to breathe. In relief. In her bag, the hard drive held secrets that could change everything. "You're amazing," she whispered to Thunder, who maintained a constant and silent gallop. "Dad was right about you." The horse neighed softly in response, as if perfectly understanding the compliment. The moon remained high in the sky, illuminating the path back to the barn, where the next step of the plan would begin to take shape. Back at the barn, Sophia connected the hard drive to the laptop with trembling fingers. The password, as her father had indicated in the letter, was the date of her first horseback ride, 0815R998. A bittersweet memory of that special day passed through her mind as the device initialized. "My God," she whispered upon seeing the number of files organized into dozens of folders. Her father had been meticulous in his investigation, much more than she had imagined. One folder in particular caught her attention: Black Waters Project. Inside, she found detailed plans of the dam that Victor and his associates were planning to build, along with studies that proved the environmental disaster such construction would cause. "They're even lying in the environmental impact reports," she murmured, analyzing the documents. "If this dam breaks, it will destroy not just our region, but affect the entire state's water system." The radio communicator crackled, bringing Sheriff Garrett's voice. "Sophia, we found something at the abandoned farm. Hannah left clues, a sequence of coordinates. We're deciphering the meaning." "Wait," Sophia responded, her eyes fixed on the computer screen. "There's something here. Dad kept a record of neighboring properties. One of them belonged to Hannah's family." Thunder, who was keeping guard near the barn entrance, neighed softly. The animal seemed restless, as if sensing they were close to an important discovery. "The coordinates, Sheriff," Sophia continued, opening more files. "They correspond to old gold mines in the region, places that were closed decades ago, but that Hannah's family knew well. Her grandfather was a miner." "Makes sense," Jack's voice sounded in the background of the transmission. "Those mines have miles of interconnected tunnels. It would be the perfect hiding place." Sophia continued exploring the files, finding more and more evidence of the extent of Victor's scheme. It wasn't just the Anderson lands he wanted. His plan involved the entire region. "He's buying properties through frontmen," she explained to the sheriff. "Shell companies registered in the names of humble people who can barely read. I have contracts here, bank transfers, everything documented." A video file caught her attention. It was a recording of a meeting between Victor and foreign businessmen, held secretly at the Anderson mansion. Her father had managed to record everything through the security cameras. "The dam is just the beginning," Victor's voice sounded clear in the recording. "When we're finished, we'll have total control of the region's water resources. Whoever controls the water controls everything." Sophia felt a shiver run down her spine. Victor's ambition went far beyond what they had imagined. He didn't just want wealth. He wanted absolute power over the lives of thousands of people. "Sheriff," she called on the radio, "we need to act quickly. I have enough evidence here to arrest Victor and all his associates. But first, we need to find Hannah. She's the only one who can personally confirm all this information." "We're preparing to check the mines," Garrett responded, "but we need to be discreet. If Victor discovers we're close..." The sound of a car approaching interrupted the conversation. Thunder immediately became alert. His ears turned towards the direction of the noise. "Someone's coming," Sophia whispered, into the radio. "I need to hang up." Quickly, she disconnected the hard drive and stored it along with the laptop. Years of adapting to her condition had made her extremely agile in situations that required quick movements. Thunder strategically positioned himself near the loft stairs, ready to protect Sophia if necessary. The sound of the car was getting closer, and now it was possible to hear voices. "Are you sure you saw movement around here?" a male voice questioned. "Absolutely," another responded. "And there was a black horse. It must be that wild animal everyone talks about." Sophia held her breath. Victor's men had followed their tracks here. Her mind worked rapidly, seeking a way out. The mines that Hannah was using as a hideout could be her only chance, but how to get there without being seen? Thunder neighed very softly, calling her attention. The animal seemed to have a plan of its own, his intelligent eyes fixed on a small opening at the back of the barn, a passage that Sophia hadn't noticed before. The voices were getting closer and closer, while a crucial decision needed to be made in a matter of seconds. Without hesitation, Sophia allowed Thunder to help her mount. The horse moved silently towards the opening at the back of the barn, his hooves barely making a sound against the packed earth floor. The passage, partially covered by old boards, seemed to have been used long ago to transport hay. Outside, the night was clear, with the full moon providing natural illumination that both helped and worried. While on one hand it allowed them to orient themselves better, on the other it made them more visible. "There's the barn," a voice sounded not far away. "Let's surround the place." Thunder didn't wait for a second command. With surprising agility, he plunged into a narrow trail that wound between the trees, descending the slope towards a denser area of vegetation. Sophia held on tightly, trusting the animal's instincts. Years of experience with horses had taught her that sometimes it was better to let them choose the path. The radio communicator vibrated softly in her bag. She carefully picked it up, keeping the volume to a minimum. "Sophia," Garrett's voice, was almost a whisper. "We're near the main entrance of the mines. There's suspicious movement here. I think we've found where they're keeping Hannah." "I'm on my way," she responded equally quietly. "But I have unwanted company following me. Thunder is taking me on an alternative path." "Be careful," warned the sheriff. "Victor just left the mansion with more men. He seems agitated, as if he knows something." Thunder continued his precise descent down the slope, carefully choosing where to step. The terrain was treacherous, with loose stones and exposed roots, but the animal moved as if he knew every inch of the path. Suddenly the horse stopped, his ears alert. Seconds later, flashlight beams cut through the darkness above them, where the barn was located. "Damn. Kurt," cursed one of the men. "The place is empty, but there are recent marks here." "They can't have gone far," another responded. "Spread out and search. The boss wants the girl and that horse found before dawn." Thunder remained motionless, perfectly camouflaged among the shadows of the trees. Sophia could feel the tension in the animal's muscles, ready to depart at the slightest sign of danger. It was then that something caught her attention. Partially covered by vegetation, an old stone structure rose discreetly. It was a secondary entrance to the mines, smaller and apparently forgotten by time. "You're incredible," she whispered to Thunder, who was already heading towards the opening. "How did you know about this?" The horse neighed very softly, as if responding. As they approached, Sophia noticed recent marks on the ground. Someone had used that entrance in the last few days. "Sheriff," she called on the radio, "I found another entrance to the mines. There are signs of recent use." "Must be how Hannah is entering and exiting," Garrett responded. "Stay where you are. We'll meet you." "There's no time," Sophia decided. "Victor's men are approaching, and he's on his way. I need to enter now." "Sophia, no. It's too dangerous. Those mines are a labyrinth." But her decision was made. With Thunder's help, she dismounted and transferred to her wheelchair. The mine entrance, although old, had a gentle ramp, probably used in the past for carts. "You can't come in with me, friend," she said to the horse, caressing his muzzle. "But I need you to do something important. Find Sheriff Garrett and lead him here." Thunder looked at her with what seemed to be concern in his intelligent eyes. Reluctantly, he took a few steps back, blending with the shadows of the forest. Sophia took a deep breath and entered the mine. The air was humid and cool, with a slight smell of wet earth. Her firm hands moved the wheelchair with precision, while her eyes adapted to the darkness. The light from her small flashlight revealed old wooden beams supporting the ceiling, rusty tracks on the floor, and, more importantly, recent passage marks footprints and wheel marks similar to those of her chair. "I'm coming, Hannah," she thought, advancing further into the mine. "I just hope I'm not too late." Outside, the sound of voices and flashlights continued, but now it seemed more distant. Thunder had disappeared into the night, silent as a shadow, in search of the help Sophia would need very soon. The interior of the mine was a labyrinth of tunnels and galleries, but Sophia noticed that some marks on the floor formed a pattern. Someone had left discreet arrows drawn with chalk on the walls, almost imperceptible to anyone not looking for them. "Hannah, you always think of everything," she murmured, following the markings. Her wheelchair moved with surprising ease along the old tracks, which still maintained a reasonable leveling. The air became denser as she advanced, and the external sounds were completely replaced by the constant dripping of water on the rocky walls. Her flashlight cast ghostly shadows, transforming each protrusion into a mysterious figure. After about 15 minutes of careful progression, Sophia reached a fork. The chalk marks pointed to the right, but something caught her attention in the left tunnel, a metallic reflection that didn't seem natural. Approaching cautiously, she discovered a small object wedged between the rocks, a flash drive protected by a waterproof case. Attached to it, a note written in Hannah's unmistakable handwriting. "For S, if you're reading this, it means you've discovered the way. I have more evidence, but it needs to be used at the right moment. Follow the markings. Beware of tunnel." 7. H. Sophia's heart raced. Hannah was alive, and more than that, she was still one step ahead of everyone. Carefully storing the flash drive, she continued following the markings. The tunnels gradually became wider, evidencing that she was reaching a main area of the mine. Old abandoned tools and equipment created unsettling shadows on the walls. A distant sound of voices made Sophia quickly turn off her flashlight. She remained motionless, letting her other senses adapt to the almost total darkness. "Can't be far," a male voice echoed through the tunnels. "The boss wants her found before that evidence goes public." "And if she's already handed everything?" "Over to the police," questioned another voice. "Then we have orders to ensure she can't testify." The voices were coming from a level above, probably from one of the main entrances to the mine. Sophia waited in silence until the footsteps moved away, her heart beating so hard she feared it might be heard. When she was sure she was alone again, she turned the flashlight back on and continued her way. The markings led her to an area where the tunnel widened considerably, forming a kind of natural chamber. "Stop right there," a female voice sounded in the darkness. "Who are you?" "Hannah," Sophia called softly, recognizing her secretary's voice. "It's me." A beam of light illuminated her face, and soon Hannah emerged from behind a stone column. She was thinner and had deep dark circles under her eyes, but her eyes maintained their determined sparkle. "Thank God you're alive," the two women embraced emotionally. "When I heard about what Victor tried to do, he didn't expect me to." "Have a plan B," Hannah smiled weakly. "Come, I need to show you something." She led Sophia to a secluded area of the chamber, where she had set up a small improvised office. A laptop, powered by portable batteries, was connected to several storage devices. "It's not just about the dam," Hannah began to explain, opening files. "Victor is involved with an international organization. They buy strategic lands in various countries, always using the same method: pressure, threats, and forged documents." "The control of water," Sophia completed. "I saw something about this in my father's files." "Exactly. But I discovered something even worse. The dam they want to build isn't just for tailings, it's part of a larger plan to purposely contaminate the region's water table. This way, they would force everyone to depend on the water system they would control." A distant sound of falling rocks made them both fall silent. Hannah quickly turned off all the lights. "There are more people in the mines," she whispered. "We need to—" Her sentence was interrupted by the unmistakable sound of approaching footsteps. Many footsteps. "Quick!" Hannah began to disconnect the equipment. "There's a secret passage behind that column. It was used by the old miners in case of cave-ins." Sophia helped gather the most important evidence, while the voices and footsteps grew ever closer. Her mind worked rapidly, trying to calculate how much time they had before they were discovered. It was then that a familiar sound echoed through the mine, a powerful neigh followed by shouts of surprise and confusion. "Thunder," Sophia smiled. "He found the sheriff." But her relief was short-lived. Other voices joined the tumult, and one in particular made her blood run cold. "Find them!" Victor's voice reverberated through the tunnels. "They have to be here somewhere." Chaos ensued in the mines. The sound of footsteps and voices came from various directions, echoing through the tunnels in a way that made it impossible to determine exactly how many people were approaching. This way, Hannah guided Sophia to the secret passage, skillfully, camouflaged by old boards. This tunnel leads to an exit near the creek. As they moved as silently as possible, they could hear the confusion Thunder was causing at the main entrance of the mine. The horse, demonstrating an almost supernatural intelligence, had chosen the perfect moment for his distraction. "Stop them!" Victor's voice sounded increasingly uncontrolled. "Don't let that damn horse enter the mine!" "Boss, Sheriff Garrett, I is here with reinforcements," someone shouted. "They're surrounding all the exits." Sophia and Hannah continued advancing through the narrow tunnel. The wheelchair barely fit through the space, but years of adaptation had given Sophia an extraordinary ability to maneuver in adverse conditions. "Wait!" Hannah suddenly stopped. "Did you hear that?" A different sound mixed with the chaos, running water much stronger than the usual dripping in the mine. "The underground creek," Hannah explained. "It passes through the mine before emerging on the surface. That's why this area is so strategic for Victor's plans." They continued advancing, now guided also by the sound of water. The tunnel began to widen slightly until it opened into a larger natural chamber where the underground creek ran with considerable force. "Impressive," murmured Sophia, observing how the light from their flashlights reflected on the crystal-clear water. "All this natural beauty, and they want to destroy it all." A distant rumble made them return to reality. It sounded like a controlled explosion. "He's gone mad," Hannah exclaimed. "He's trying to block the exits." Not just that, Sophia realized, feeling a vibration in the ground. "He's trying to provoke a controlled cave-in. If the mine's structure gives way, the underground creek would be buried," Hannah completed, "and all the evidence would be lost forever." The sound of falling rocks was getting closer. Hannah quickly began transferring important files to a small waterproof device. "Take this," she handed the device to Sophia. "This has to reach the sheriff. It contains the coordinates of all the affected properties, plus evidence of the international conspiracy." "Come with me," Sophia insisted, realizing her friend seemed to hesitate. "I can't. There are still more documents to recover, and someone needs to buy time for you to escape." Before Sophia could protest, a new rumble shook the mine, much closer this time. Small rocks began to fall from the ceiling. "Go!" Hannah pushed Sophia's wheelchair towards the passage leading to the exterior. "The tunnel is safe for another 50 meters or so. Then there's a side exit, partially covered by vegetation." "Hannah, please. I'll be right behind you," the secretary promised, although her eyes said something else. "Now go." Sophia advanced through the tunnel with renewed determination, her firm hands guiding the wheelchair over the uneven terrain. Behind her, she could hear more explosions and the sound of raised voices. The passage began to slope slightly upward, and a breath of fresh air indicated the exit was near. That's when she heard a familiar neigh. "Thunder," she called softly. The horse appeared at the tunnel entrance, partially hidden by ferns and vines. His eyes shone in the dim light, as if he was relieved to find her. "Miss Sophia," Sheriff Garrett's voice sounded nearby. "Thank God." "Sheriff, quick." Sophia handed him the device. "Hannah is in there. Victor is trying to cause a cave-in to destroy the evidence." More explosions sounded from inside the mine, and the ground shook more forcefully. Thunder neighed nervously, his hooves beating against the ground in agitation. "My men are entering through other passages," Garrett informed, quickly storing the device. "Victor is surrounded, but..." A scream of anger and frustration echoed through the tunnels. Victor's unmistakable voice. The sound was followed by more explosions, and then, for a terrible moment, total silence. Sophia's heart seemed to want to leap from her chest. Thunder positioned himself protectively by her side, while everyone waited tense for what would come next. The silence that followed the explosions lasted only a few seconds, but it felt like an eternity. It was broken by the sound of hurried footsteps and voices coming from various directions of the tunnels. "He's trying to escape through the east tunnel," someone shouted. "Not this time," Sophia murmured, an iron determination in her voice, as if understanding her thoughts. Thunder neighed and positioned himself for her to mount. With Sheriff Garrett's help, Sophia settled on the animal's back. "It's too dangerous," Garrett warned. "Trust me, Sheriff. Thunder knows these lands better than anyone." The horse departed immediately, following a path parallel to the slope. Sophia knew that the east tunnel had an exit that emerged near a small valley, exactly where they were heading. As they rode, she found herself recalling every moment of this journey: the initial confrontation with Victor, the fall from the cliff, the rescue by Thunder, the discoveries in the barn, her father's letter, the encounter with Hannah in the mines. Each piece of the puzzle had guided them to this moment. Thunder slowed his pace as they approached the valley, his ears alert, capturing every sound. In the dimness of the dawn that was beginning to break, a figure emerged, staggering from the mine entrance. "Victor." "It's over," Sophia announced, her firm voice echoing through the valley. Victor froze upon seeing her mounted on Thunder, his eyes wide as if he was seeing a ghost. "No, it's not possible," he stammered, taking a few steps back. "Yes, it is possible, Victor," she continued as Thunder slowly advanced. "Your plan to destroy our lands, to contaminate our water, to control the lives of so many families is over. You don't understand," he tried to argue, his face showing a mixture of anger and desperation. "The power we would have, the money." "I understand perfectly," Sophia interrupted him. "I understand that you betrayed my father's trust, that you manipulated documents, that you threatened innocent people. And now you're going to answer for all of this." Victor looked quickly around, searching for an escape route, but Thunder, with his imposing presence, blocked the only possible path. "You can't prove anything," he challenged, regaining some of his characteristic arrogance. "I can prove everything," a familiar voice sounded behind him. Hannah emerged from another mine entrance, accompanied by police officers. In her hands, she carried more devices with evidence. "Hannah!" Sophia smiled, relieved to see her friend safe and sound. "Sorry for the delay," the secretary smiled back. "I had to ensure all the documents were recovered." Victor, seeing himself surrounded, made one last desperate move. He ran towards one of the mine entrances, but Thunder was faster. With a precise movement, the horse knocked him down, keeping him on the ground with a hoof firmly positioned on his chest. "Impressive," commented Sheriff Garrett, who had just arrived with reinforcements. "I've never seen an animal act like this." "Thunder is special," Sophia affirmed, stroking the horse's neck. "He always knew who deserved trust and who didn't." As the police handcuffed Victor, the sun began to rise over the hills of Golden Creek. It was a new day, not just literally but symbolically, for the entire region. In the weeks that followed, investigations revealed the full extent of Victor's scheme. Dozens of politicians and businessmen were indicted. The illegally appropriated lands were returned to their rightful owners, and the dam project was permanently cancelled. Sophia transformed the Anderson farm into an environmental preservation and social inclusion center. The place began to offer equine therapy for people with disabilities, as well as being a sanctuary for rescued horses. Thunder, although still free to come and go as he pleased, chose to make the farm his home. He was often seen accompanying Sophia on her rounds of the property or gently assisting children during equine therapy sessions. Hannah assumed the position of executive director of the center, using her administrative experience to ensure the project grew and expanded to other regions. Sheriff Garrett, inspired by the case, created a special division to investigate environmental crimes and protect California's preservation areas. The story of Sophia, Thunder, and their allies became a legend in Golden Creek, a reminder that truth, when supported by courage and determination, always finds its way to the light. And on full moon nights, it's still possible to see Thunder and Sophia riding through the hills, silent guardians of a land that was almost lost, but now flourishes stronger than ever. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope that Sophia and Thunder's journey has touched your hearts. This story of courage, loyalty, and justice is just one of the many exciting narratives we have to share. To continue this journey through equally captivating stories, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, activate the notification bell, and leave your like. With each new episode, we explore different aspects of the human soul and the special connection between people and animals. Share your thoughts in the comments. Your opinion is very important to us. After all, each story comes to life through the eyes of those who hear it. Until our next encounter,